Hi, everybody. All right, today I want to talk to you about something that I get asked a lot. So on Instagram, sometimes I will post, and ask me anything. Instagram, ShariceWilliams.xo, if you're not already following me. And yeah, I'll put just, ask me anything. Do you have questions on stuff? Whether it be, like business stuff, my personal life, witchcraft, energy work, whatever. And I always get so many questions of what advice do you have for beginning witches, for newbie witches, baby witches, or whatever you want to call them. People just starting out on their witchcraft practice, their witchcraft journey. And so I want to kind of give my advice on some great tips, I think, for when you're just starting out, on your personal witchcraft practice. So first I want to say welcome if you are on your witchcraft practice. It's a beautiful practice to be on. It's a beautiful thing to incorporate into your life. But it can get overwhelming, right? It can get really overwhelming. So my first tip for new witches is don't compare yourself. Don't compare where you are on your own personal journey with maybe people that you follow on Instagram or YouTube or authors of books that you read. Don't compare yourself. First of all, don't compare yourself at all, ever, anyway, whatever it relates to, because we don't know people's lives. We don't know what they've been through. We don't know what they're really portraying. I mean, even authors in books, they're portraying a certain thing. They're sharing certain information. And especially on social media, people are sharing one element of their lives. And people are so multifaceted. There's also a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've seen it seems like a lot of information gets regurgitated on social media as it pertains to witchcraft. And so not everybody, just because they have beautiful pictures, doesn't mean that they necessarily know exactly what they're talking about or that they're so much more experienced than you. So don't compare yourself to other witches. That's number one. Don't compare yourself. Your journey is yours, theirs is theirs, and you don't know really what's going on in their life and their mind and their practice. So don't compare yourself at all whatsoever. Another thing, tip number 2, so maybe I'll just do like what do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 tips for newbie witches. There we go. That's probably what I'll title this. Okay, so don't compare yourself. Number 2, read, listen, watch, learn as much as you can from as many different people. Don't discount somebody because, maybe they're younger than you. So you're like, oh, well, what can this person teach me? They're younger than me. Or maybe you're like, this person's so much older than me. There's no way I can relate. Or this person doesn't look like me. Or this person, is not from the same country as me. This person practices a different type of witchcraft than I practice. Don't discount people. Don't discredit people. Learn and read and watch and listen from as many people as you can, as many different types of people as well, because there's always something you can learn. You are always a student. That's such an important thing. Like, you never get to a point that you know everything. I've been studying witchcraft for 20 years, I think. How old am I? Almost 20 years, 17 years. And I don't know everything at all. I'm constantly learning stuff. And I've even learned a lot of stuff from witches who have been practicing for a lot less time than me. I've learned stuff from witches who have been practicing for their entire lives. Heck, I've even learned stuff from people who aren't witches, honestly. But yeah, so don't ever discount somebody. Always be open to learning and always be open to being a student. The moment you think that you know everything is the moment you need to check yourself and open your eyes and realize that no, you do not know everything. There's so many people out there that know so many amazing things about so many different topics. So yeah, read as much as you can. With that being said, though, don't overwhelm yourself because there's a lot of content on witchcraft out there. There's so many books, there's so many podcasts, there's so many YouTube videos, Instagram accounts, people out in your community. If you have a metaphysical or a witch shop in your area, there's people there you can go talk to. On meetup.com, there's all different kinds of witchcraft groups that you can join. So it can get really overwhelming. So while I am saying learn from everybody that you can, you don't need to learn everything at once. Don't feel like you need to learn it all. Okay, so I want to start learning about witchcraft. I need to know everything tomorrow. No, it is a lifelong practice. It's a lifelong journey. So give yourself time. Maybe instead of just being like, oh, I need to listen to every podcast about everything, think about it for a second. When you think about witchcraft or people that you do happen to follow or something on social media, what about witchcraft really seems to stand out for you? What drew you to the idea of witchcraft? Was it working with herbs? Great. Maybe start with looking up YouTube videos on working with herbs for beginners, or reading some books on herbs with witchcraft. Scott Cunningham is a great author for that. Maybe witchcraft was working doing candle magic. Maybe that really was like, you were like, wow, what is this? I really want to do candle magic. Start there. Learn from a bunch of different people about candle magic. Listen to several different people on YouTube and what they have to say about candle magic. Read a couple different books on candle magic. Start with what drew you to the craft in the first place, and then go from there, and more than often than not, you'll read one book on something and then that will kind of spark interest and want to take you down another path in a different direction. So just start with what drew you to the craft in the first place and try to learn as much as you can about that, or at least enough that you feel comfortable with, like, oh, okay, I kind of know what that topic is. Maybe sigils are something that drew you to witchcraft. Learn, a decent amount about sigils. I'm not saying you have to be an expert on sigils before you move on to something else, but just so that way you're not really overwhelmed, or maybe even just like a few topics. So maybe you were interested in sigils, herbs, and candle magic, and that's what made you were like, wow, what is witchcraft? Let's learn more about it. Study up on those 3 things first before feeling like you need to learn everything all at once. This also then leads into do what feels good for you. Witchcraft doesn't look a certain way. There's not one, there's only one witch. There's so many, just as there's like a million different types of people, there's a million different types of ways to practice witchcraft. It's a personal path. It's a personal journey. While there are some traditions and some religions that have, kind of set guidelines or set rules or set ways that they do things, generally witchcraft as a whole is a very personalized practice. It's a very personal connection that you have with your own witchcraft practice and your own way that you do things. So don't feel like, if somebody that you watch and admire on YouTube or somebody you follow on Instagram or something does things a certain way, don't feel like you have to do it that way. Like when it comes to however they do things, don't feel like you need to do it that way unless you are drawn to that. Like, so for instance, maybe you don't want to work with goddesses, but you follow somebody on social media that is all about goddesses. That's okay. You don't have to incorporate goddess energy into your witchcraft practice. Altars. Maybe the people that you're learning from and the books that you're reading tell you, oh, these are the items that you need to have on your altar, which that, by the way, drives me nuts when people say this is what you need to do in your witchcraft practice. No, honey, you don't need to do anything in your witchcraft practice except what you want to be doing and what feels good to you. So don't listen to people that are like, you need to have this on your altar. Unless, of course, it is relating to a specific branch of witchcraft. Or like Wicca, I know certain covens and branches of Wicca have certain ways that they do things. Certain traditions have specific things, but in your own personal practice, you don't need to have certain things on your altar. Put on your altar what you feel connected to, what you feel drawn to. It's your practice, so do what feels good to you. Leading into that is the next tip is to actually practice. It's one thing to read a bunch of books and gain all this knowledge, which is amazing and awesome. But the way that you learn the most and the way that you progress the most in your witchcraft practice is by actually utilizing and doing the things that you're learning. So while it's awesome to read about, herbs for different things and candle magic, it's totally different to actually sit there and put the herbs in your hand and dress the candle yourself and bless the candle and sit there with these energies and light it. And, you learn so much about different energies and about yourself. And you grow so much when you are actually practicing witchcraft, when you're actually doing these things. So make sure that you have a healthy balance of learning and applying that knowledge, because that's also too where you learn what are you more connected to. Because while you may be reading a lot about herbs, you may start to work with herbs and then be like, you know what, I don't really feel that connection. This just doesn't really feel right to me. I feel more drawn and connected to crystals. And that's okay. You can then like kind of drop the herbs and move on to crystals, whatever works for you. So definitely though, get that hands-on experience. Then leading into that is one of the biggest things for, I think, with witchcraft is getting out into nature. I think that this is extremely important. To me, I feel like witchcraft is nature. It's working with and connecting to not only the energies and the powers within yourself, but the energies and the powers in the universe and within our earth. I feel like it's so important to connect to our earth. And I feel like a lot of the time in our society nowadays, we're so removed from nature. And I think that's also an element of why so many people are becoming more attracted to witchcraft now. Not that it wasn't popular. It's always been around. But while it seems so much more out in the open, and why it seems so many more people nowadays are being drawn to witchcraft, is because our souls are yearning for that earth connection that we have been so removed from, I think. So a big advice tip for newbie witches is spend time in nature. And when you're in nature, take a moment to just close your eyes and just breathe and listen to the surroundings around you. Maybe you're at the ocean, feel, not just be in nature, because there's a difference of just like being in nature versus being in nature. So go to the beach and really just feel the waves, feel the energy of the waves. Maybe try to sync your breathing with the waves. Feel the sand, really like feel these energies. Take a moment to just breathe and to feel and to be. If you're in the forest, take a moment to try to sync your breathing with just the energy coming off of the earth. Run your hands over the moss that you see, literally connecting yourself back to the earth. And I'm not saying you're going to walk out of the woods or walk off the beach or river or mountains or desert, wherever you are, and you're going to have some major epiphany. But I guarantee you're going to leave that nature connection moment feeling more connected, feeling more grounded, feeling more centered. And I firmly believe when we take that time to really be with nature, that it awakens things within us, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. It awakens things within us. It stirs energy within us. It connects us back to our primal power energy. And I think it's such a huge, huge thing. And I hear some people say, well, I don't like nature. And I'm not saying you need to go into nature to be a quote unquote good witch or to have a strong witchcraft practice. But I do think it is really, really important. And maybe you don't like the ocean. Go to the woods. Maybe you don't like the woods. Go to a river. Maybe you don't like the river. Like find a desert. Like find somewhere in nature that you feel connected to. I think it's really important. Let's also talk really quick about, well, I'll do that one next. So next, let's talk about journaling. I think this is really important. Typically, a witch's journal is called either a grimoire or a book of shadows. And I could do a whole video episode, whatever, on the differences between a grimoire and a book of shadows. Some people use them interchangeably. Traditionally, though, a grimoire is kind of where you take your notes of what things are. So like maybe you are learning about crystals. This is where you'll put rose quartz, and you'll write down what rose quartz is for. Maybe you're learning about the pagan holidays. So you'll write down the different correspondences for different pagan holidays. It's sort of just where you store just general information is in your grimoire. And then a book of shadows is kind of more where it's a more personalized journal. It's where you're putting, maybe you go out into nature. It's where you write down and you journal the experiences you had that day connecting to nature. It's where you try a new spell. So you write out, all of the steps that you took in your spell, and you write down how you felt during the spell. You write down any outcomes that the spell had. It's sort of, it's like your diary. It's like your personal witchcraft diary is the book of shadows. And then where you just store general information, it's kind of like a reference book is your grimoire, whatever you call it. I think it is really beneficial to keep a journal. This way you can kind of go back and even see where you've kind of grown from. You can look back. Sometimes there's things that I've forgotten that I've experienced, or things that I've learned that I kind of forgot about, and I'll go back and look at my old journals, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that realization. That's so cool. Let me apply that to my life now. So it's just kind of a nice way to compile all of the information you're learning and experiencing, and it's a great way to reference it. And then there's also just a lot of power in writing things out as well, which again, that can be a whole topic in itself. And then finally, let's talk about the witch's tools. I know this is one of the things that draws people to witchcraft. Like it looks fun. It looks pretty cool when you see somebody's like sacred space and you see, you know, they have their cauldron and they have these crystals and incense and bottles of herbs and potions and bones and all this cool stuff. It looks awesome. But do you need all of it? Short answer is no, you don't need any of it. You don't need all of these tools. So don't feel like you need to rush out like, okay, I'm a witch now. I need to go and drop, you know, $1,000 on all of these tools. You don't need to do that. And I know that there are some books out there that say like, this is what you, again, quote unquote, need for your witchcraft practice. No, you don't need things. That being said, it is good to start working with tools and to incorporate tools into your life. You don't need them though. You can just, with your own energy, mind, intention, you can create beautiful magic. You can, you know, just by being out into nature, that is practicing forms of witchcraft as well. You know, praying under the moon, absorbing the moonlight, that's witchcraft, and that doesn't require any tools. So that being said, it is handy sometimes to have some tools. So what tools can you choose? What are your interests? So remember when we first talked about like, what are the three, you know, 1 to 3 things that initially drew you to witchcraft in the first place? So maybe they are herbs, candles, and crystals. Those are the 3 things that really you were like, wow, what is witchcraft? I want to bring this into my life. Right there, herbs, crystals, candles. You know, what herbs, when you're first reading about herbs, what are some that really stand out to you? What are you feeling drawn to? Lavender, rosemary, and peppermint. Get those herbs and read about those herbs and learn about them and bring that into your life. Candles. It's always good to have black candles and white candles because you can do everything, especially white candles. White candles are universal. Same with clear quartz for crystals. So you could even just start out with lavender, herb, a white candle, and a clear quartz crystal. And there you go. And you can do so much magic with just those 3 items right there. And really learn those 3 items and get connected to those 3 items. And then maybe you want to bring in something else. I do think also another tool that is pretty handy to have when you're just starting out is, oh, my dog's barking, sorry, is a cauldron or some sort of vessel that you can like burn papers in, because that's another really easy form of magic, is burning papers that you've written stuff on. So really like an herb that you like, a crystal, a white candle, a vessel to burn something. And that's really all that you need to get started, I think. Maybe some incense if you like incense. And my husband's about to walk in, so I'm going to cut this video short. But that's it. All in all, your practice is your own. Start small. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't compare yourself. All right. Much love to you. Bye-bye.